Hello, and welcome to the 2022 State of the Elmhurst Park District. I'm Kevin Graff, President of the Park Board of Commissioners. I'm excited to be here and we'll kick things off with some opening comments before I turn it over to Executive Director Jim Rogers, who will dive into the state of the district. This presentation is being recorded and a link will be posted on the Park District's website, epd.org, for those who couldn't attend this live Zoom meeting and be able to view at their leisure. We believe this method will provide everyone the opportunity to hear the awesome things the Elmhurst Park District is doing in the community. I am extremely proud to live in such a great community and humbled to be able to serve you, our residents, while pursuing the mission to enrich lives while having fun. I'd like to acknowledge our other Park Board Commissioners, Vice President Tim Sheehan, Mary Keys, Claire Kubisa, Megan Scarcella, Vince Spaeth, and Carolyn Ubriaco. We have a great team with varying experience, but we have one thing in common, our passion for Elmhurst and the Elmhurst Park District. Let's get into the overview of the Park Board. We are a 7-member team elected by the residents and serve a 6-year term staggered every 2 years. We are strictly volunteer without compensation. We do provide the strategic direction, oversight, and policy for the district. We do not perform day-to-day operations, as that is handled by our executive director, whom we hire and reports to us. We approve the budget, large expenditures, and the tax levy. We seek out resident input on larger scale projects like the park redesign and playgrounds. So what does the Park District do for the community? We approximately have 475 acres of open space, which is maintained by our full and part-time staff. We have over 1,000 recreational programs, trips, and services to choose from across all ages. Speaking of fun, we host over 10 free community events like Parkpalooza, Eldridge Adventure Day, Movies in the Park, and the Easter egg hunt. We have 29 parks, 2 new ones in the last 2 years, 19 playgrounds, and more on the way, 68 athletic fields, as 2 pools, as well as 4 sled hills for the snowy months ahead. I know we're all looking forward to that. Not to mention the miles of trails and walking paths. We are proud to be the largest youth employer in the community, and we have Courts Plus, a full-service fitness center. So let's go over the profile of the Park District. The Elmhurst Park District was formed over 100 years ago in 1920. We serve 10 square miles for nearly 47,000 residents across 16,500 households. Elmhurst is a strong community with nearly 2.8 billion in EAV, or equalized assessed value. Since 2017, we've had a AA1 bond rating, and our fiscal year is January 1st to December 31st, with a budget of $26 million for 2023. Our tax rate for 2021 was only 0.3253 on every $100 of assessed value, or approximately 5 cents on every tax dollar, and in the lower third compared to the other agencies in DuPage County. I, as well as the Park Board, feel very proud of what the Elmhurst Park District accomplishes with those tax dollars. On behalf of your Park Board, we say thank you, and we look forward to continuing to serve you and providing more opportunity and value to our community. Now I'm going to turn it over to our executive director to provide specific details around 2022 and beyond. Jim?
Thank you very much for kicking us off, President Graff. It's a great way to get us going. The state of the Elmhurst Park District is strong. I wanted to mention, for those watching at home, thank you very much for joining us. And if you'd like to put a question out to us, please feel free to do so in the chat. As time allows, we will try to answer some of those questions at the end of the presentation. So as I said, the state of the district is strong. It's going to be a very positive presentation, but we want to start with kind of where we began in this past year in 2022. And that was still in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, I'm very, very pleased to say that that has significantly changed for us at this point in time. We are now nearing the endemic stage, which means that it is no longer a full raging pandemic, and things are at a much more manageable level. Currently, we're at what's called a medium community level, according to the Centers for Disease Control. We had been at a low level for many, many weeks, but now as we've moved to cooler weathers and people are moving inside, we're at a little bit of an increased level from there, but still at a much more manageable place. Capacity restrictions and social distancing have been eliminated and masking is no longer required. And so as a result, significant impacts of the pandemic are no longer being experienced by the Park District. And for that, we're all very, very grateful. So let's talk about 2022 and what really some of the highlights and accomplishments have been for the district on behalf of the community. The first thing I'd like to highlight is that we completed the development of Centennial Park, the first brand new park in Elmhurst in more than 3 decades. This plan and this park were part of the district's Vision 2020 plan, and it addresses an area of town that's known as a park desert, where homes are not within easy walking distance of a park. The Centennial Park neighborhood and residents from all parts of the community will benefit from this park at this site for decades to come into the future. And it also preserves this site as open space for future generations in our virtually landlocked, built-out community. Next, also on that same site as Centennial Park, we celebrated the opening of the Centennial Recreation Center. This is another project in the district's Vision 2020 plan, as expressed by the community, calling for the development of a new multidimensional center, to replace the Abbey Senior Center, which was too small and lacking in many respects. And now we're able to provide expanded programming for adults of all ages. Moving into this building and this site that is 2.5 times larger than the Abbey is allowing us to do both of those things, and we're very proud of that. And we're very proud of really the reception that it's received from the community. Next, another exciting project, we completed the expansion of Glos Memorial Park. Almost 6 years ago, the Park Board made the decision to purchase the nearly 1-acre site on Palmer Drive adjacent to the existing Glos Park to preserve it as open space for future generations in our community. And now today, the expanded Glos Park is a textbook example of efficient and effective government at its finest. You may not be aware that the original Glos property to the north, including the mausoleum, is actually owned by the city of Elmhurst, and since the late 1970s has been managed and maintained by the Park District as part of a long-standing intergovernmental agreement between our 2 agencies that really serve the community well. In addition, I imagine you might be glad to know that residents' property taxes were not used nor raised to fund development of this expansion, because during the ensuing years since the property was purchased, the Park District has been receiving impact fees from developers of all of the new apartment and condominium buildings in downtown Elmhurst. And the Park Board, as part of their award-winning financial planning efforts, made the wise decision to set those funds aside so that they could be reinvested here in the same neighborhood, so to speak, where they were generated from. And in addition to benefiting longtime residents of the community, will also be appreciated and used by all of those new residents now living in downtown. This is another example of an expansion. It was quite a year of ribbon cuttings for the Park District this year. And you can see a photo on the right there on your screen from taking the day of the ribbon cutting of a family in town enjoying the newly christened park. Next, I'd like to talk about a project that's not something that's brand new, but was an example of the district taking care of the assets that we currently own and manage and maintain on behalf of the community. And that was the resurfacing of the parking lot at Courts Plus and Plunkett Park. You may not be aware that this is the 2nd largest parking lot in the entire park system and has over 330 parking spaces. And in addition to, and what it serves actually is a multitude of uses, including members of Courts Plus, park users of the adjacent playground and athletic fields, as well as visitors to IC's turf field. We're very, very pleased to have this be resurfaced, and it's another improvement that's been very, very well received by the community. Next, we were very pleased to redevelop and open for the community this fall the new Eldridge Park East playground. The previous playground at this location was originally installed in 2001 and was scheduled to be replaced in the year 2020. However, as the district was planning to hire a contractor to build the playground, the pandemic hit and ultimately resulted in losses to the park district in excess of $6 million. As a result, the playground project was deferred along with almost $1 million in other capital projects because unlike most other units of local government in Elmhurst, including the city and the school district, park districts received no taxpayer funded assistance from the federal government to help offset those losses. But now, after the park board and staff persevered for over 2 years and the community was patient and waited with us, we couldn't be more happy than to have constructed this new playground for the community. Next is another new park, and as Commissioner Graff alluded to, it's going to be the second brand new park in Elmhurst in over 30 years, and that is our newly named Pick Park. Over the course of the last year, we worked with the city of Elmhurst, the park board, I should say, worked with the city of Elmhurst, and approved an ordinance that conveyed 3 small parcels that were owned by the city at this location in the Pick subdivision. And for those of you who are watching who maybe aren't familiar with where this is located on the west side of Route 83 in Salt Creek, just north of St. Charles Road, and is a part, in fact, of the city of Elmhurst and the Elmhurst Park District. So we're very excited to work intergovernmentally with the city of Elmhurst to acquire these properties that now have allowed for the development of a new park, as I said, Pick Park. In addition to completing a master plan, we've also applied for what's called an OSLAD grant for this project, Open Space Land Acquisition and Development, through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And we are looking forward to and crossing our fingers that this will help fund that project. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Another highlight of last year was that we began the restoration of the creek at Sugar Creek Golf Course. A groundbreaking ceremony was held for that project earlier this month, for this project that has been in the planning stages since 2016. And the golf course is now looking forward to restoring the creek, which is a natural resource that provides open space, habitat, flood storage, and recreational opportunities. The creek, which runs directly through the golf course, has experienced significant shoreline erosion, sediment deposit accumulations, and degraded water quality in recent years. This project seeks to remedy those issues and preserve the creek. More than 50% of the nearly $1.2 million project cost will be funded through grants from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency and the DuPage County Water Quality Improvement Program, while the remaining funding will come equally from Sugar Creek Golf Course, along with the Village of Villa Park and the Elmhurst Park District, who jointly own and operate the golf course. The project is expected to conclude in the spring, and while the golf course is currently closed during construction, the driving range remains open, as well as the clubhouse for rentals and the pro shop. Another project we were very pleased to complete that is again taking care of the district's existing assets was the resurfacing of the 2 north tennis courts at Wilder Park. These courts are among some of the most heavily used in the community, and as you can tell by the photos here on the left, we're in need of resurfacing. So we're very pleased to have completed that project. We're going to be coming back in the spring and completing the color coding, and then they will open for play when we get back to warmer weather. Next project I'd like to highlight is one that is on the minds of a number of our community members of our community, as we know, and that has been the challenges that we've experienced with our registration software. Following challenges that we did experience last February, the board took action and engaged the services of an IT consultant to help staff identify a registration software solution and assist with determining a new solution that will best meet the needs of the community. That process has proceeded very well during the course of the year, and we will be recommending a new vendor to the park board and the community before the end of this year. In addition, like a number of organizations throughout really the area, the state, and the country, the Elmhurst Park District has an effort underway to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And our steps this year included conducting an organizational assessment to develop recommendations and strategies to do just that. Some of the findings that have come from that we'll be looking forward to implementing in the course of next year will be highlighted again a little bit later in the presentation. And finally, closing the highlights from 2022, we were very pleased to receive an award called the Best of the Best Award from the Illinois Association of Park Districts. And this award relates back to the project I mentioned earlier surrounding the Centennial Recreation Center. As part of the development of that center, the Park District and City worked through a memorandum of understanding that the new center would be the home for Metropolitan Family Services DuPage in Elmhurst. Metropolitan Family Services is an organization that provides social services and opportunities to the community that was previously located in City Hall, downtown Elmhurst at City Hall. But now we've agreed, as I said, with the City of Elmhurst to move that organization and those services into the Centennial Recreation Center. And we now have both recreational and social services opportunities under one roof for seniors in our community. As a steward not only of the community's tax dollars, but just as importantly, of the majority of its open space, the board and staff are always thoughtful and strategic in how plans are developed to meet the needs of the community. I'm now going to highlight the district's key strategic priorities for 2023, followed by talking about some of the projects we have planned for next year as well. In the area of parks, we are looking to meet the community's need for parks, open space, and outdoor amenities. And again, some of the things I've mentioned that started last year are mentioned here. We'll continue and complete the restoration of the creek at Sugar Creek Golf Course. We'll begin the design and development of engineering at Pick Park, complete design, development, and engineering of a dog park, and look to redevelop Allison Park. I'll speak about all those projects in a little bit more detail later. And we're also looking to expand our park operations staffing. We always strive to raise the standard for the care and maintenance that we provide in our parks. And we're looking forward to doing that next year throughout the parks in general, and also specifically on our athletic fields. Next, in the area of facilities, we're going to be looking to update our Vision 2020 indoor facility plans. The district had some very ambitious plans that were put in place prior to the pandemic, and conducted a community survey to garner feedback on those. Based upon the results of that survey in the pandemic, we had to temporarily set those plans aside, but we're going to be coming back and revisiting those plans next year. In addition, like I mentioned, for parks, we're also looking to expand our facilities operations. As with some of the things I've highlighted are the number of facilities that we maintain and the square footage that we're responsible for has expanded. And so again, we want to make sure that we continue to take care and maintain those things to the standard that the community expects. Next, in the area of programming, we're always looking to provide innovative programming to meet the community's needs. And we're going to be continuing in investing in programming, amenities, and services that are identified as financially sustainable and meeting the community's needs. And in addition, something I'll mention in a moment, we're going to be looking to engage the community. But when we do that, we'll be looking to take some of that feedback and use it to address programming as we move into the years ahead. And with that, another area that we focus as part of our strategic plan is communications. We're always looking to provide exceptional and consistent guest experiences. And our specific plans for that in this coming year, as I alluded to, are to conduct community engagement to update our long-range plans. That includes everything from programming to facilities and to parks. We'll also be looking to become more equitable and inclusive through training of the board and for the board and staff, and also community engagement. And lastly, we will be conducting community outreach during our transition to new registration software so that the community can understand the new benefits that will be in place and how to effectively use the software. Next, in the area of finance, really our key here is to always have sustainable revenue strategies and funding options. We will be continuing communicating the district's financial condition and future outlook, and this presentation tonight is a part of that. But we'll also be looking to seek alternative revenue sources to fund our Vision 2020 capital projects. One of those I already alluded to earlier, which is that we applied for that OSLAD grant for Pick Park, again, which we have, and we'll ask the community as well to cross your fingers that we will receive. And in addition, I talked a little bit, and I'll talk in a moment more about a dog park, but we're also going to be looking as we move forward with developing a dog park into sponsorship opportunities and naming rights options for that project as well. Next, in terms of internal operations, kind of how we deliver the services to the Park District, we're always looking to strengthen our organizational culture. A key piece of that will be implementing the DEI action plan that I mentioned earlier. And also continuing to look at how we can optimize the district's organizational structure to make sure that our staffing can best serve and meet the needs of the community. Part of this will be achieved by, I would say, both for today and for years into the future. And that will be achieved in part by creating employee development plans and succession planning efforts as well. And then lastly, we're going to be conducting an organizational culture survey to make sure that we enhance employee engagement and address long-term employee needs, because the better employees that we have and the more satisfied employees that we have, the better we'll be able to provide services to the community. Next, I'd like to speak specifically about projects that we have planned for 2023 after having earlier highlighted projects that we had accomplished this current year. And you'll notice some recurring themes as we have projects that are carrying over the course of 2 years. The first is the Sugar Creek Restoration Project. I've spoken about that at length, but we do look forward to completing that in late spring and then reopening the course to the community. Next is the Ben Allison Park redevelopment. This is our annual park redevelopment. The Park District has a replacement plan where we replace one of the district's 19 playgrounds each year, which puts them on approximately a 20-year replacement cycle. This allows us to keep up not only with safety and accessibility improvements, but also with changing needs of the community and replace playground equipment before it really reaches the end of its useful life, where we are no longer able to either get replacement parts or make repairs. And so Ben Allison Park is next up on our list for replacement. We held some terrific public input meetings at the park earlier this summer, as shown in the photo on the left there, with the drawing on the right there being all the new playground equipment. We anticipate beginning construction of June of 2023, when the existing playground will be removed. We have a really nice partnership that we've worked with for years with an organization called Kids Around the World that removes the existing structures for reuse in a country deemed in need by the organization. As I said, we've used this at many other playgrounds, including this past year at the Eldridge East Playground. And then we will, once that playground, the existing playground has been removed, we will begin construction of the new playground, and we anticipate completion by October of 2023. In addition to a new playground, this project will also include repositioning the little ball diamond that is there into a much better location and providing a terrific entrance focal point to the Park District at the entrance of or near the intersection of West Avenue and Surf Street, that will provide much easier and better access into the park. Next, as I've alluded to, we're going to be moving forward with engineering and permitting for the dog park. You may be aware that back in 2018, the Park Board approved a master plan for the construction of a dog park at property the Park District owns in the Yorkfield subdivision on Old York Road. And we are now moving ahead with this project. You see on the screen here the exciting conceptual master plan, I should mention, that was put together. And now that we are at a position where we can financially move ahead with the project, we have to complete the detailed engineering and go through the permitting process as well. All those efforts will take place during the course of the next year, and then we will be going to bid and looking to construct this park and open it in 2024. Next, a similar theme. I talked about Pick Park earlier and the fact that we've applied for the OSLAD grant that we hope will fund up to 50% of the development costs. You see here on your left a photograph of the existing site, and on your right a picture of the plan. One of the challenges here is just a matter of timing. We don't know. We applied for the grant back in September. We don't know exactly when we will hear back about whether or not we will receive it. We have, as I said, we've got our fingers crossed and ask you to do the same. But once we hear back, we will be able to proceed with engineering and permitting. If we get the grant, we'll proceed ahead with the full plan as shown here on the drawing. If we don't receive the grant, we anticipate going back to the Park Board and discussing options for reducing the size and scope of the development there. But either way, we look forward to moving ahead with a new park there at Pick Park in the Pick subdivision. Next, moving back towards a park in the center of town in Wilder Park. The Izzadro Museum left Wilder Park and Elmhurst a few years ago and moved into Oak Brook. And back at a meeting in 2019, the Park Board concurred with staff that it was not in the community's best interest to have to spend up to $2 million to repurpose and bring the Izzadro Museum up to code. It being an over 60-year-old building that was built for a very, very specific purpose, that being a museum of lapidary arts. This decision was based on a facility assessment that we had completed by an architectural firm and was followed by efforts in which we reached out to a number of organizations in town to see if there might be any other entities in town that might want to make use of this building. but they declined for really the same reasons that the park board did as well, just really looking at the cost and expense of trying to repurpose a building that was built for that very, very specific purpose a long time ago. So as a result, the park board agreed with staff's recommendation to demolish the building, and we will be doing that next year. And we'll be looking to complete the project, which will include abatement in the building, demolition, and then restoring the site. And then this will allow the district to increase green space in Wilder Park and provide future development opportunities here at the south end of the park. Next, you'll recall that I mentioned in 2022, we resurfaced the north tennis courts at Wilder Park that are by our small recreation building. This next year in 2023, we're looking to follow that up by resurfacing the two south tennis courts that are adjacent to the Wilder Mansion. So once that is done, we look forward to having all four courts in Wilder Park be fresh and new for the community's use. Next is another planned project that really goes back to maintaining the district's existing assets. And this is to replace the soft surfacing at the playgrounds at both Wilder Park and Marjorie Davis Park. I mentioned a few moments ago that we have our playgrounds on about a 20-year replacement cycle. And each of these two playgrounds is about halfway through that replacement cycle, or maybe a little bit more. But what we're finding is that in some of our most heavily used parks and playgrounds, or at playgrounds where we don't have a lot of natural shade with trees, and the sun really beats down on this soft surfacing, that it is starting to wear out much in advance of when we're planning to replace the playground itself. So the playgrounds at both of these parks are in fine shape, but it's time to come in and redo the surfacing so that it will continue to meet the needs of the community and be safe for use. So both those parks will be resurfaced in 2023. That covers the highlights of our big picture big picture capital projects for the coming years. So we're very excited about that. We'll now spend just a moment talking about financials. And I want to mention, I've alluded to the pandemic before in the presentation, and want to mention that as I did, that the district's operations contracted significantly in 2021 as a result of the pandemic. And while this year has been a tremendous improvement over those years, we have not quite reached back to pre-pandemic levels. And I would imagine everyone watching here is kind of aware of what's going on in our current economy. But just to quote from a recent article in the Associated Press, the U.S. economy is caught in an awkward, painful place, a confusing one too. Growth appears to be sputtering, home sales are tumbling, and economists warn of a potential recession ahead. But consumers still keep spending, businesses are posting profits, and the economy is adding hundreds of thousands of jobs each month. I mention this because the district has in no way been immune from these turbulent economic times, as supply chain issues and the highest rate of inflation in 4 decades have impacted the district in a myriad of ways that have to be taken into account as we're making plans and budgeting for 2023. These impacts include recommending that the district's tax levy will be increased at the 5% level as allowed by the tax cap under which we operate. This compares to the Consumer Price Index, which as of September 30th was 8.2% for the prior 12 months. So while we are increasing the district's tax levy, it will be at less than the cost of inflation. In addition, fee increases will be implemented in most of our program areas in order to address the escalating costs of providing services to the community. I've mentioned in prior presentations that the costs that the district experiences are very similar to those that we experience in our own homes, whether it's for utility costs or costs for food or costs for all of the projects that you saw that I've described on the screen here. So in order to ensure that we have resources available to continue to maintain the district's assets and address the community's priorities, we will be moving ahead with that as part of our financial planning. And specifically, some of the areas I just would like to mention and highlight so that you all can be aware are continued adherence to the state mandated increase in the minimum wage. We're about 5 years into that mandated increase. As I mentioned, we're also experiencing significant increases in our utility costs, with fuel costs projected to be up 70%, electricity costs up 25%, and natural gas costs up 33%. We're also proposing in 2023 for enhanced merit increases for our staff, not only to recognize their efforts and contributions, but just as important, to address retention in an extremely challenging labor market. I mentioned earlier that we're looking to expand our staffing in our parks and facilities maintenance operations areas. I also mentioned increased inflationary costs for things like vehicles and equipment, park amenities, including playground equipment, supplies for programming and others. In addition, we have to look to make sure that we have adequate funds for current and future required preventative maintenance, which is a lot of the projects that I alluded to here, like playgrounds, tennis courts, and parking lots. Finally, I mentioned earlier, and I'll just mention again, that it will also aid in our continuing efforts to catch up from the projects that were deferred during the pandemic, when we experienced a loss of $6 million and did not receive financial assistance from the federal government. President Graff alluded to a moment ago the Park District's share of the tax dollar, and we have a graphic here just to more specifically illustrate that. As compared to every dollar that residents pay in property taxes in Elmhurst, just a little over 5 cents or a nickel comes to the Elmhurst Park District. He also mentioned and alluded to the district's tax rate. And this chart that you see in front of you here on the screen now has the tax rates for every park district in DuPage County, as noted by the blue bars. The Elmhurst Park District's current tax rate for 2021 is noted by the green bar there. And the yellow line that you see across all the bars shows the average tax rate of all park districts in DuPage County. And then the purple note there in the middle of the screen notes that our proposed tax rate for next year, which will still have us below the average rate of park districts in DuPage County. With that, I'd like to once again mention that the state of the Elmhurst Park District is very, very strong. We're very, very pleased at the progress that we continue to make on a year-over-year basis. And now I'm going to take a moment and see if any questions have been shared in the chat. I'm looking to see. I'm not seeing that we have received any. I'm looking at our folks who are helping me moderate. I'm just going to maybe give a moment or two here for any of you watching at home who might want to take a second to throw any chat questions out there before we conclude the meeting. So I'll just wait for a moment here. Not seeing, and I should mention as well that we noted when we publicized the meeting in advance that folks could send in questions in advance. We did not receive any in advance either. So not having seen any questions coming into the chat, I want to thank you all very much for your attendance and remind you again, as Commissioner Graff mentioned, that we have been recording this session and we will be making it available to access through the district's website. So thank you again very much for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our State of the Park District next year. Good night, everyone.